We just had to not like each other for a bit.
You had to not like me, which came easy.
So
It's been a dream to join the MCU. The movie is called The Fantastic Four. I'll confess, I did all my stretching for whether they like it or not, they're never gonna.
What is it about Pedro that everyone just loves to work with him, and what's the secret sauce, you know?
It's the special sauce. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
It's just ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together.
They're gonna be honest.
It's time. It's time for the reveal.
The truth reveal.
Yeah. He's a brilliant actor. Never really came to understanding the story.
But the first time I read the script, it was very hard for me to contain.
What happens when a fan favorite actor goes from being Hollywood's golden boy to just another preachy celebrity stuck in a bubble? Well, if you're Pedro Pascal, that fall from grace isn't just quiet, it becomes a full-blown conversation on the Joe Rogan Experience. And let's just say Joe didn't hold back. It all started with a clip that hit the internet like wildfire. Joe Rogan, in the middle of his usual podcast banter, suddenly shifted gears and asked, "What's going on with Pedro Pascal lately?" Dude went from the Mandalorian to some kind of walking lecture. His tone was part joking, part concerned, but his message, brutally clear. Rogan went on to talk about how Pedro Pascal used to be a fan favorite for being cool, grounded, and super talented, but lately, it feels like Pascal forgot what made him popular in the first place. Joe described it best. He used to be the kind of actor everyone liked because he didn't try so hard. Now he's trying way too hard to be something else. And the audience got it. Viewers were nodding along, laughing, and sending the clip around like wildfire. Because let's be honest, Pedro's recent behavior has raised a lot of eyebrows. From hijacking Marvel's Fantastic Four reboot with his deep, emotional reinterpretation of Reed Richards, to dominating press interviews with long-winded speeches that had more layers than a philosophy textbook, it's safe to say people are noticing. Joe Rogan made it crystal clear there's a difference between being thoughtful and just making everything about yourself. He said, "There's this new trend in Hollywood where some actors get so wrapped up in their own ideas, they forget it's supposed to be entertainment, not therapy." That line hit hard, and he wasn't just making fun, he was making a point. Rogan brought up how Pedro Pascal used to be admired for disappearing into his roles. In The Mandalorian, he was subtle, strong, mysterious. But now, Rogan said, every time he talks, it's like he's auditioning to be the spokesperson for Hollywood's latest emotional campaign. Joe wasn't trying to be mean. He was pointing out a pattern, one he's seen before. He said, "This is the same stuff we've seen with other actors. One day they're grounded, the next day they're using every interview to give a TED Talk about identity, systems, trauma, whatever the hot topic is." And Joe's listeners knew exactly what he meant. Then came the big roast. Joe pulled up a clip from an interview Pedro did while promoting Fantastic Four. In the clip, the host asked a simple question about working with the new cast. But instead of answering it directly, Pedro launched into a 4-minute talk about how Reed Richards symbolizes the internal tension of society's broken reflection of self-actualization. Joe stared blankly, paused the clip, and said, "What did I just listen to? Fans clipped it, reposted it, and turned it into memes." One user wrote, "Joe Rogan just said what we were all thinking." Others chimed in with, "Pedro, blink twice if you remember what fun is." It wasn't just a roast, it was a wake-up call. Rogan kept going, pointing out that what bothers people isn't that Pascal wants to take acting seriously, it's that he seems to be forgetting his audience. Most people go to superhero movies to enjoy themselves, not to get a lecture. If I wanted that, I'd go back to college. And Joe didn't stop there. He dove into Pedro's social media. "Have you seen his Instagram lately?" Rogan asked. "It's like an art museum and a motivational calendar had a baby." He joked about the overly filtered pictures, the cryptic captions, and the sudden shift in tone from a lighthearted actor to self-declared thought leader. It was clear Pedro Pascal in Joe Rogan's eyes wasn't just changing, he was becoming a stereotype, another Hollywood celebrity who got so caught up in their image they forgot how to just be real. But Joe wasn't alone in this thinking. Comments flooded YouTube, Reddit, and TikTok with fans saying things like, "I miss the old Pedro," Or why can't he just play the character and not turn it into a personal crusade? People weren't mad at him, they were disappointed because fans liked Pedro for his authenticity, his humor, and his ability to connect without preaching. Now it felt like that connection was getting lost in a sea of overanalysis. Joe wrapped up the segment with a message that hit home. Look, I respect talent. I think Pedro's a great actor, but if you want people to keep rooting for you, don't talk down to them. Don't act like every movie role is a social movement. Sometimes people just want a good story. That closing thought summed it up perfectly. Joe wasn't saying Pedro shouldn't have opinions. He wasn't saying actors shouldn't care. But there's a difference between caring and turning every appearance into a lecture series. Hollywood has enough people doing that already. What made Pedro Pascal stand out in the beginning was how different he was. Laid back, cool, relatable. The guy who would laugh during interviews, joke with his co-stars, and not take himself too seriously. That Pedro had fans cheering. But the new version, the one giving long speeches about the symbolism of stretchy limbs, that guy's losing people. And now, with Joe Rogan calling it out so publicly, the conversation has shifted. What once was whispered in comment sections is now out in the open. The question isn't, is Pedro Pascal too woke? The question is, has Pedro forgotten what made people love him in the first place? As more clips of Rogan's roast circulated, something surprising happened. Even fans who had previously defended Pedro started admitting the change felt real. One Reddit post said, "I still like him, but Joe's not wrong." It's getting hard to enjoy his interviews when every answer feels like a college thesis. It wasn't personal, it was about relatability. In a time when fans want authenticity more than ever, Pedro Pascal started sounding more like a scripted monologue than a real person. And that disconnect is what Joe Rogan tapped into so effortlessly. But here's where things really got interesting. After Rogan's podcast, a few other celebrities chimed in, not directly, but subtly. Some actors who've worked with Pascal posted throwback photos or quotes about the importance of team dynamics and sticking to the script. Nothing direct, but enough to get people speculating. Was there more to this story than we knew? And then there's the elephant in the room, Pedro's upcoming projects. Now that the Fantastic Four reboot is being restructured, what does that mean for his future roles? Will other studios take the risk? Or will they start wondering if Rogan's roast was more truth than comedy? The reality is, Pedro Pascal is at a crossroads. He can either lean into the lecture-style celebrity persona he's been building, or he can pull back, remember what made him shine in the first place, and reconnect with the fans who still want to root for him. It's not about changing who he is, it's about remembering who he was. Joe Rogan didn't destroy Pedro Pascal, he just held up a mirror. And what fans saw in that mirror wasn't anger or scandal, it was disappointment. Disappointment that a guy who once felt like one of us now feels like he's trying too hard to be something else. So, where does Pedro go from here? That's the real question. Will he double down and keep pushing his deep dive takes into every red carpet and promo video? Or will he take a step back, laugh at himself a little, and maybe even come on Rogan's podcast to clear the air? Because here's the truth, people still like Pedro Pascal. They just missed the version that felt like he was part of the audience, not preaching to it. And Joe Rogan, he said it best. Hollywood's full of people trying to be deep. We just want people who know how to be real. Let's see which version of Pedro shows up next. After Joe Rogan's viral roast of Pedro Pascal hit social media, something shifted, not just in the public narrative, but inside Hollywood itself. Studio executives, producers, and even actors began privately reevaluating what it meant to work with celebrities who brought more attention to their message than the movie itself. Pedro's sudden transformation into a walking think piece had gone from charming to exhausting. Behind the scenes, whispers of concern became formal conversations. One executive reportedly said during a development meeting, "We're not just casting talent anymore, we're casting personalities, and some of those personalities are louder than the characters they're supposed to play." Though not named directly, everyone at the table knew who that comment was aimed at. Meanwhile, smaller creators on YouTube and podcasts followed Joe Rogan's lead. Commentary videos popped up overnight with titles like Pedro Pascal from Hero to Headache and When Actors Forget the Fans. Each one dissected new moments, from press clips to panel appearances, highlighting just how far Pedro had drifted from his roots. And while the tone was still mostly respectful, the message remained consistent. Pedro's transformation was becoming a distraction. Interestingly, Pedro Pascal remained silent. No tired tweets, no interviews, no humorous response video. The silence only added fuel to the speculation. Was he regrouping? Was his team advising him to wait it out? Or was he unaware that his public image had taken a major hit? Joe Rogan even commented again in a follow-up episode, "Look, Pedro's not a bad guy. I think he means well. But this whole thing is a reminder. People want honesty, not over-explanation. If you have to give a 3-minute lecture just to talk about a superhero movie, you've already lost the plot." In a twist, fans began revisiting older Pedro Pascal interviews, ones where he was fun, lighthearted, even self-deprecating. Those clips resurfaced with comments like, "I miss this Pedro." In a world full of performance, audiences were begging for authenticity. And for a while, Pedro was the poster boy for exactly that. Now the ball is in his court. Will he listen? Will he pivot? Or will he continue down the road of over-intellectualizing every project he touches? One thing's for sure. The crowd that once cheered him on is now watching him closely and hoping he finds his way back to the version of himself that didn't need to lecture the world to be loved.